Hello and welcome to Starlit Science Stories. I'm glad you found your way here, whether you're settling into bed, curling up on the couch, or just looking for something gentle to carry your thoughts into the quiet corners of the night. Tonight, we're going to spend some time with a faithful rhythmic companion, your heart, that soft, tireless drum tucked away in your chest, keeping time without fanfare, without fuss. From the moment you came into this world, it's been beating away. Sometimes fast, sometimes slow, always there. But how does it do it? How does the heart just keep going? That's what we'll be exploring this evening in the calmest, kindest detail possible. I'll take you on a soothing journey through the anatomy, the electrics, the rhythms, the stories, and the science behind how your heart keeps beating quietly, persistently, and hopefully without interrupting your descent into dreamland. Now, I should mention there's a small chance this video might be too interesting. I know it's a terrible risk. You came here to unwind, and I'm about to tell you all about ion channels and Purkinje fibers. But if you do happen to stay awake, at least you'll pick up a few delightful cardiac facts along the way. Maybe even impress someone tomorrow with your knowledge of atrioventricular node delays. Stranger things have happened. Before we begin, if you enjoy this kind of relaxing science storytelling, I'd be very grateful if you gave this video a like and subscribe to the channel. It's a quiet little community here, but every new face or pair of sleepy ears helps it grow. And if you're still awake and feeling sociable, leave a comment letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you. I always find it a little magical to see this sleepy caravan stretching across time zones, from early nights in Tokyo to midnight in Manchester to night owls in New York. Now let's begin. Close your eyes if you'd like. Take a deep breath in and out, and let's follow the quiet pulse that's been with you all along. Nestled just to the left of your breastbone, beneath your ribs and behind your lungs, is a small but mighty pump, your heart. It doesn't ask for much: a bit of oxygen, some glucose, and a decent blood supply of its own. In return, it offers you something priceless: an unbroken rhythm, a steady flow of life, one beat after another, roughly 100,000 times a day, every single day for decades. At first glance, the heart seems almost simple. It's a muscle, sure, though not the kind you flex in front of a mirror. It's about the size of your clenched fist, and when you hold it in your mind's eye, maybe you picture the classic cartoon heart shape. But the real thing is more rugged and asymmetric than that. Not quite the Valentine's Day poster child, more like a muscular four-chambered workhorse sculpted for efficiency. The heart is built like a two-story house with 4 rooms, 2 atria upstairs and 2 ventricles downstairs. The atria are the welcoming committee, receiving incoming blood from the body and the lungs. The ventricles are the real powerhouses, pushing blood out with a mighty squeeze. The right side of the heart handles blood that needs oxygen, sends it off to the lungs. The left side, flushed with fresh oxygen from the lungs, pumps that bright red cargo out to the rest of the body. Now, blood doesn't just slosh around in there. It flows with precision. Guiding that flow are 4 clever little flaps called valves. These act like one-way doors, snapping shut behind the blood as it moves forward. They open with each beat to let blood pass through, then close to make sure it doesn't sneak back the way it came. There's the tricuspid valve between the right atrium and right ventricle, the pulmonary valve out to the lungs, the mitral valve between the left atrium and left ventricle, and the aortic valve sending blood out to the body. Together, they form a kind of cardiac choreography, opening and closing in perfect time. And this muscle is no ordinary muscle. It's made of cardiac muscle tissue, unique stuff found nowhere else in the body. It's strong like skeletal muscle, but unlike the biceps or quadriceps, you can't control it with conscious thought. It beats whether you're awake, asleep, running, or dreaming about cheese. It contracts with a rhythm that's astonishingly consistent, thanks to specialized cells that know exactly when to squeeze and when to rest. Surrounding the heart is a protective double-walled sac called the pericardium. It's like the heart's raincoat and shock absorber all in one, keeping it cushioned and secure within your chest. Between the two layers is a small amount of fluid, which helps the heart move with minimal friction. It's not glamorous but very necessary, like the oil in an engine or the silence in a library. And then there's the coronary circulation, the heart's personal blood supply. You might assume the heart, being full of blood, just dips into the passing stream when it's thirsty. But it's more sophisticated than that. The coronary arteries branch off the aorta and wrap around the heart like a caring embrace, feeding oxygen-rich blood directly into its hard-working muscle. When these arteries get blocked, it's trouble. This is how heart attacks often begin. The muscle starves for oxygen, and if the blockage isn't cleared, part of the heart can stop functioning altogether. That's why coronary health is so important. This little pump powers your whole life, but it still needs fuel like anything else. Even the shape of the heart is functional. Its walls vary in thickness depending on the job at hand. The left ventricle, the one responsible for pumping blood to the entire body, has the thickest walls, built like a heavyweight champion. It needs serious muscle to overcome the pressure of the systemic circulation. The right ventricle, on the other hand, sends blood only to the lungs, which are close by and lower pressure. So, it's leaner, more of a long-distance runner than a sprinter. Interestingly, the heart sits slightly tilted, like it's lounging sideways in your chest cavity. This leftward lean is why your heartbeat is easier to hear or feel on the left side. It's not just for aesthetic balance. It allows the ventricles to align in a way that optimizes blood flow. If you could watch a heart in action, not in a horror film way, but perhaps in a medical video or an open heart surgery, if you're into that sort of thing, you'd see a mesmerizing, pulsing dance. Each beat involves a coordinated wave of contraction and relaxation. First, the atria contracts, squeezing blood into the ventricles. Then, the ventricles fire, sending blood to the lungs and the body. Between beats, the heart relaxes like an athlete catching their breath. This cycle, contract, relax, repeat, happens roughly once every second. And yes, the heart can beat outside the body. It sounds dramatic, but it's true. As long as it's supplied with oxygen and nutrients, it will keep pulsing for a little while. That's because the signal to beat comes from within. It doesn't need a brain to tell it what to do. But we'll get to the electrical magic a bit later. For now, it's enough to know that your heart is both incredibly simple and astoundingly complex. It's a pump, yes, but one with layers of regulation, resilience, and refinement. A muscular clock that never ticks, never talks, just thumps quietly, reliably, lovingly. And maybe, just maybe, as you listen to this, you can feel that gentle thump beneath your ribs. A quiet reminder that you're here, that you're alive, and that something inside you has been working steadily, loyally since before you even had a name. Blood, in many ways, is the most well-traveled substance in your body. It goes on an endless loop, visiting every cell, delivering tiny parcels of oxygen and nutrients, picking up waste, and heading back to reload. It's like a diligent postal worker that never sleeps. But none of this would happen without the heart's carefully mapped highway system, the circulatory pathway. And despite what childhood board games might have taught us, it's a bit more intricate than go to lungs, collect oxygen, pass, go. Let's follow the path. Imagine, if you will, that you're a single red blood cell. Call yourself Ruby. You've just finished a long journey through the body, dropping off oxygen and scooping up carbon dioxide. You're tired, a bit sluggish. You need a refill. So where do you go? First, you arrive at the right atrium of the heart, coming in through either the superior or inferior vena cava, basically the giant front doors for blood returning from the body. The superior vena cava handles blood from your head and upper body. The inferior handles everything below that. Both stream in, emptying into the right atrium like rivers meeting at a delta. From there, you're nudged through the tricuspid valve. Remember, valves are like security guards. One direction only, into the right ventricle. This chamber doesn't need to pump far, just to the lungs, but it still gives a solid squeeze. With the next heartbeat, you're launched through the pulmonary valve into the pulmonary artery. Wait, an artery? But aren't arteries supposed to carry oxygenated blood? Usually, yes. But the pulmonary artery is the one glorious exception. It carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs so it can pick up oxygen. You're on your way to a spa day for blood cells, oxygen rejuvenation, and a touch of carbon dioxide detox. In the lungs, you pass through an incredible network of tiny capillaries, so small that red blood cells often have to squeeze through in single file. It's in these narrow corridors that the real exchange happens. Oxygen diffuses in, carbon dioxide diffuses out. You emerge brighter, bolder, literally more red, thanks to the oxygen now bound to your hemoglobin. You're ready for your next delivery route. Now, you return to the heart, but this time to the left atrium via the pulmonary veins. And yes, this is another oddball. Veins normally carry blood back to the heart, but these carry oxygenated blood from the lungs. Exceptions make life interesting, don't they? From the left atrium, you pass through the mitral valve into the left ventricle. This is the big leagues. The left ventricle has the thickest, most powerful walls of any heart chamber. When it contracts, it doesn't just send blood to one place. It sends it everywhere: your fingertips, your toes, your brain, your stomach, even that weird bit behind your knee. All of it. The moment the ventricle contracts, blood is forced through the aortic valve and into the aorta, the largest artery in the body. The aorta arches like a regal gateway, then descends through your torso, splitting and branching endlessly into smaller arteries, arterioles, and finally into capillaries. Now you're out of the heart and into the vast highway system of the body's circulation. Arteries carry blood away from the heart, and as they branch, they become thinner and more flexible, eventually reaching the capillaries, those incredibly fine vessels that sit next to almost every cell in your body. This is where the magic happens again. At the capillary level, blood slows down. Has to. There's no room to zoom. The walls of these vessels are just one cell thick, making them ideal for diffusion. Oxygen leaves the red blood cells and enters the tissues. Glucose, amino acids, hormones, all delivered with care. At the same time, waste products like carbon dioxide and urea are picked up. Blood begins its return journey, a little less glamorous now, but no less important. Veins are the return path, and they start small. Capillaries feed into venules, which feed into veins, which eventually gather into larger veins like the vena cava again. And then you're back in the right atrium. The cycle continues. No breaks, no complaints. It's worth noting that veins have their own set of challenges. Unlike arteries, which have the force of the heartbeat behind them, veins rely on other tricks to get blood back to the heart. Many veins, especially in the legs, have valves that prevent backflow, and they get help from surrounding muscles. Each step you take gently squeezes veins, nudging blood upward. This is one reason movement is so important. Sitting too long without stretching or walking can cause blood to pool, especially in the lower limbs. The entire journey, heart to lungs, lungs to heart, heart to body, body to heart, happens in about 60 seconds. That's right. Your body's entire blood supply makes a complete loop every minute or so. It's like an internal high-speed train, but without the ticket price. And then there's the blood itself. Red blood cells are the oxygen carriers, but they're not alone. White blood cells patrol for infections. Platelets help stop bleeding. Plasma, the straw-colored liquid they all swim in, carries nutrients, hormones, and waste. It's a busy little ecosystem zipping around under your skin. All of this circulation, this movement, is coordinated and continuous. The heart doesn't just beat. It orchestrates. It ensures that every toe and every brain cell gets exactly what it needs when it needs it. Keeps you warm, fed, thinking, healing. Every beat pushes life forward. So, the next time you feel your pulse on your wrist, your neck, or quietly in your chest, remember what's moving beneath your fingertips. You're feeling the gentle push of blood making its journey. A journey that started just seconds ago and will begin again in the blink of an eye. It's the quiet hum of a system that's always in motion, keeping you going without you ever needing to ask. Imagine for a moment that your heart is a symphony orchestra. There are no strings, no horns, no percussion, but there is a rhythm of precision, a perfect sense of timing. And conducting this grand internal concert isn't your brain. In fact, the heart doesn't wait around for instructions from upstairs. It's got its own rhythm section built in and self-starting, a biological conductor that never sets down the baton. This self-beating property is called autorhythmicity. It's one of the most remarkable things about the heart. It beats all on its own, even when separated from the body, as long as it has enough oxygen and nutrients. No other muscle in your body behaves quite like this. Your biceps, for instance, just sit there unless your brain gives the order. The heart, on the other hand, is fiercely independent. A bit of a diva, really. The maestro of this electrical performance is a small patch of specialized cells located in the right atrium called the sinoatrial node, or SA node for short. It's often nicknamed the natural pacemaker, and with good reason. These cells can spontaneously generate electrical impulses, little zaps of energy that ripple outwards and tell the heart when to contract. Think of the SA node as the spark that starts the fire. It initiates an electrical signal about 60 to 100 times per minute in a healthy adult. That signal spreads through the walls of the atria, causing them to contract and push blood into the ventricles. That's the first part of the beat. Gentle, deliberate, like the drawing of a bow across a violin string. But it doesn't stop there. The signal then reaches another cluster of cells known as the atrioventricular node, or AV node. This is where things get clever. The AV node holds the signal for a fraction of a second, just long enough to let the ventricles fill with blood. It's like a well-timed pause in a piece of music, a breath between movements. Without this delay, the top and bottom chambers would squeeze at the same time, and the heart would become more of a flailing sponge than an effective pump. After the pause, the signal travels down a specialized pathway called the bundle of His, which, despite sounding like a Victorian mystery novel, is very much part of the heart. The signal then splits into two bundle branches, one for each ventricle, and continues down into the Purkinje fibers, which weave throughout the ventricular muscle like a fine electrical net. When the signal reaches these fibers, the ventricles contract with a mighty squeeze. That's the second part of the beat. Strong, firm, sending blood out of the heart and into the lungs or the rest of the body. It's a surge, a push, the cymbal crash of the cardiac orchestra. So, where does this electricity come from? It's not lightning or magic. It's chemistry. Every heartbeat is powered by the movement of ions, tiny charged particles like sodium, Na+, potassium, K+, and calcium, Ca2+. These ions move across the membranes of heart cells in a carefully choreographed sequence, triggering depolarization and repolarization, essentially an electrical on and off switch. In a resting state, the inside of a heart cell is negatively charged compared to the outside. When the cell is triggered, positive ions rush in, flipping the charge and generating an action potential, a fancy term for an electrical signal. After the impulse fires, the ions are pumped back to their original positions, resetting the cell for the next beat. It's a bit like winding a watch after every tick. Calcium plays a particularly crucial role in this process. When it floods into the cell, it doesn't just help generate the signal. It also tells the muscle fibers to contract. Without calcium, the electrical signal would be little more than a spark with no fire. It's the ion that turns go into move. All of this happens in milliseconds, and it repeats over and over every second of your life. During exercise or stress, your brain can intervene via the autonomic nervous system, speeding up or slowing down the heart as needed. But the beat itself, that starts in the SA node every single time. Sometimes this natural system goes a bit off-key. That's where arrhythmias come in, disturbances in the heart's electrical rhythm. These can range from harmless extra beats, known as premature contractions, to more serious conditions like atrial fibrillation, where the atria quiver instead of contracting properly, or ventricular tachycardia, where the ventricles fire so fast they don't have time to fill with blood. It's like a drummer going wild with no one else keeping time. In cases where the SA node isn't behaving or the electrical pathways are damaged, doctors can step in with artificial pacemakers. These small devices are implanted under the skin and send regular electrical pulses to keep the heart beating properly. They are basically tiny, loyal assistants standing in for the natural conductor when needed. We can even record the electrical activity of the heart using an electrocardiogram, or ECG. You've probably seen one, even if just on a hospital drama. Wavy lines blipping across a screen, each peak and valley telling a story. When the atria contracted, when the ventricles followed, whether the signal was fast, slow, or skipping altogether. A well-read ECG is like reading music for the heart. It tells trained eyes exactly how the rhythm is playing out. So, while the heart may look like just a pump, it's powered by an elegant, precise electrical system. A symphony of signals, ion dances, and molecular whispers that guide every beat. And even now, as you lie there, perhaps beginning to feel your breathing slow and your eyelids grow heavy, that little patch of cells in your right atrium is carrying on. Not loudly, not dramatically, just steadily, reliably, without complaint, like a candle burning in the dark, or a lullaby you don't realize you've been hearing all your life. Every moment of your life is accompanied by a soundtrack, not the dramatic theme music that plays in movies, but something more intimate, more rhythmic. It's the sound of your heart quietly drumming beneath the noise of daily life. Lube-dub, lube-dub. A steady, reassuring beat that's been there since before you even took your first breath. And while we may take it for granted, the heartbeat itself is a beautifully orchestrated pattern of pressure, muscle, and motion. Let's start with those familiar sounds, the lube and the dub. These are not just poetic approximations. They are actual noises produced by the valves in your heart as they snap shut during each beat. The lube is the sound of the atrioventricular valves, the tricuspid and mitral, closing after the atria have pushed blood into the ventricles. The dub comes just after, when the semilunar valves, the pulmonary and aortic, close to prevent blood from slipping backward into the heart. It's a well-timed percussive duet, repeating itself thousands of times a day. Now let's talk about the phases behind the sound. Each heartbeat has two main acts, systole and diastole. Systole is the squeeze, the moment when the heart contracts to pump blood out. Diastole is the rest, the moment when the chambers relax and fill with blood. The magic is in the balance. Too much pressure and not enough filling, the heart struggles. Too much relaxation and not enough contraction, same problem. It's like a dance that needs both movement and pause. A typical adult at rest will experience this cardiac cycle about 60 to 100 times per minute. That's your heart rate. A simple number, but one that tells a rich story. If you've ever felt your pulse or watched your heart rate climb during a workout, you felt the pace of this cycle change. It's one of the body's most immediate responses to stress, excitement, fear, or joy. Your heart doesn't just keep time. It reacts, adapts, and responds in real time. And here's where it gets fascinating. Your heart rate is not perfectly even. In fact, a healthy heart shows variability between beats, a few milliseconds of difference here and there. This variability is a sign that your nervous system is flexible and responsive. A perfectly metronomic heart may actually indicate a problem. Your heart is supposed to speed up when you inhale, slow down when you exhale. It listens to your breathing, your emotions, your posture. It's part of an exquisite feedback loop. Speaking of loops, your body's ability to maintain blood pressure and rhythm is part of a system known as homeostasis. Your brain constantly monitors how hard the heart is working, adjusting based on need. If you stand up too quickly, for instance, receptors in your arteries sense a drop in blood pressure, and within seconds, your heart rate increases to stabilize you. This is why you don't just faint every time you move, most of the time anyway. Let's take a little detour to explore the quirks of heart rhythms. Sometimes, your heart might flutter or skip a beat or give a strange little thud. These are called palpitations, and they're surprisingly common. In most people, they're harmless, caused by stress, caffeine, dehydration, or just an overly enthusiastic sneeze. But they're reminders of how finely tuned this system is and how quickly it can wobble off course. Other rhythm disruptions are more structured and have names. Bradycardia, when the heart rate is too slow, usually under 60 beats per minute at rest. Tachycardia, when it's too fast, over 100 beats per minute without a clear reason. Atrial fibrillation, a chaotic rhythm in the atria that makes the heartbeat irregular. Ventricular fibrillation, the serious one, where the ventricles twitch uselessly instead of contracting. This is a medical emergency, as it stops effective blood flow entirely. But even when things go wrong, the heart is surprisingly resilient. There are backup systems, alternate pathways, and in many cases, ways to reset or retrain the rhythm. Electrical cardioversion, for instance, is basically a controlled shock to restore order, like rebooting a computer, but with more adrenaline and fewer spreadsheets. To really understand what's going on with your heart's rhythm, doctors use an electrocardiogram or ECG. This simple test uses electrodes placed on your skin to record the electrical activity of your heart over time. The result is a graph with characteristic peaks and waves, each representing different parts of the cardiac cycle. The P wave marks atrial contraction. The QRS complex shows the ventricles firing. The T wave represents the ventricles resetting. It's like a musical score written in electricity. And yes, heart rhythms can even be influenced by your emotions. Think about the last time you were startled or anxious or infatuated. Your heart responded before you could say a word. That's the work of the autonomic nervous system, which controls involuntary functions like heart rate, digestion, and pupil dilation. It has two branches: the sympathetic, which speeds things up, fight or flight, and the parasympathetic, which slows things down, rest and digest. Your heart is caught in a constant tug-of-war between these two. One of the ways we can consciously tap into this system is through breathing. Slow, deep breaths stimulate the parasympathetic system via the vagus nerve, gently slowing the heart and calming the body. This is part of why breathing exercises and meditation can be so effective. They actually change your physiology, not just your thoughts. There's something profoundly comforting about all of this. The idea that your heart isn't just thumping blindly away, but adjusting itself to your needs in every moment, beating faster when you climb stairs, slowing down when you lie back, flinching at a loud noise, soothing itself as you relax. It's the quiet background hum of your life, both steadfast and responsive, a rhythm that has always been there, and if all goes well, will continue long after this moment has passed. So, maybe if you're lying in bed right now, you can pause for just a second and feel it, that steady, faithful lube dub, the gentle percussion that's been with you from the very beginning and still miraculously is playing just for you. Before you ever opened your eyes, Before your fingers formed or your lungs even knew what air was, your heart was already at work. Tucked away in the watery world of the womb, it started beating just 22 days after conception, often before the mother even knows she's pregnant. It's the first organ to function in a developing human, and for good reason. Without a working circulatory system, the rest of you can't really get started. The heart begins as something remarkably simple, not a four-chambered wonder, not yet, just a tiny straight tube. Picture a miniature garden hose folded over on itself. That's your very first heart. And somehow, within just a few weeks, this tube will twist, balloon, partition, and specialize into the adult heart we carry for life. Let's rewind to the earliest moments. In the third week of embryonic development, cells from the mesoderm, a layer in the developing embryo, start forming two thin-walled tubes. These tubes eventually fuse into a single primitive heart tube. And then the magic begins. This tube doesn't wait for full maturity to get started. Around day 22, it begins to twitch. Not a coordinated, healthy beat yet, more like a spontaneous quiver. But even this early activity starts the flow of fluids, laying down the rhythm that will soon become a real pulse. Within days, the contractions become more regular. The tube begins to loop into an S shape, curving and folding as it grows. This process is called cardiac looping, and it's crucial. Without it, the chambers of the heart wouldn't form properly, and blood wouldn't know where to go. By week 5, this once simple structure starts forming the outlines of the four chambers we know so well: 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Doesn't happen all at once. The inside of the tube grows ridges and flaps that eventually meet to form walls, or septa, to use the technical term. This septation process separates the left side of the heart from the right, ensuring that oxygenated and deoxygenated blood won't mix. At the same time, valves begin to form between the chambers. These are sculpted from swellings of tissue that gradually thin and reshape. Their job will be to prevent backflow, allowing blood to move in only one direction. Even in the womb, efficiency matters. But there's a twist, literally. The fetal heart has some clever workarounds that adult hearts don't need. After all, in the womb, you're not breathing air. Your lungs are full of fluid, and they're not doing any gas exchange. So, the fetus has special bypasses that let blood skip the lungs. One of these is the foramen ovale, a small hole between the right and left atria that lets blood flow directly from the right side of the heart to the left. Another is the ductus arteriosus, a vessel that connects the pulmonary artery to the aorta, again letting blood skip the lungs and head straight out to the body. These shortcuts are temporary. They're there for a very specific job. And when that job ends, usually within minutes or hours after birth, they begin to close. In most babies, the foramen ovale seals shut, and the ductus arteriosus constricts and disappears. The transition from fetal to newborn circulation is one of the most dramatic physiological shifts we ever undergo. In a matter of moments, the lungs inflate, blood reroutes, and the heart takes on its lifelong role as a dual-circuit pump. Sometimes, these closures don't happen perfectly. When the foramen ovale stays open, it's called a patent foramen ovale, or PFO. Many people have one and never know it. It's often harmless. Other times, congenital heart defects develop when parts of the heart don't form properly during this early stage. These can range from minor murmurs to complex conditions requiring surgery in infancy. Thankfully, many of these issues are now detectable before birth and treatable after. It's humbling to think how much happens before we even draw our first breath. By the end of the first trimester, the heart is fully formed in structure, if not in size. It will continue to grow and strengthen throughout pregnancy, just as the rest of the body develops. But the basic layout is set. The valves are flapping, the chambers are pumping, the beat is steady. And it never really stops. From that first flutter in the womb to your very last day, your heart follows the same basic plan, the same chambers, the same cycle. It's a design that's been passed down through millions of years of evolution, refined and reinforced in every species that came before us. We didn't invent the four-chambered heart. Nature handed it to us like a blueprint, signed in muscle and rhythm. There's a kind of poetry in the fact that your heart's very first task was to help build you, pump the nutrients that built your brain, your bones, your eyes. It powered your growth before you had arms to reach or lungs to cry. It was your first engine, your first rhythm, your first steady companion. And remarkably, it did all of this with no conscious guidance, no conductor waving a baton, just a set of instructions in your DNA, quietly followed with extraordinary precision. Twitch becomes a beat, tube becomes a pump, pulse becomes a lifetime. So, the next time you place a hand over your chest and feel that familiar thump, remember it's not just keeping you alive now. It's been keeping you alive since before you had a name, before you had thoughts, before you had anything but potential. Your heart didn't wait for you to be ready. It started the moment it could, and it hasn't stopped since. Time leaves its fingerprints on everything, and the heart is no exception. Though it begins life with youthful bounce, rapid, resilient, and uncomplaining, the heart does age. But like a well-loved book or a well-worn leather jacket, an aging heart carries its years with quiet dignity. It doesn't rust or crumble. It adapts, digests. It gets a little creaky in places maybe, but it keeps going, often long past what seems reasonable for a muscle that's been working non-stop since you were the size of a jelly bean. So, what exactly happens as the heart grows older? First, let's talk about the muscle itself. Like all muscles, cardiac muscle can lose some of its elasticity and strength over time. The thick walls of the heart, especially the left ventricle, may become stiffer. This means the heart doesn't fill with blood quite as easily during diastole, the relaxation phase between beats. Imagine trying to inflate a balloon that's been left out in the cold. It still works, but you have to work a bit harder to get it going. Despite this, the heart often compensates beautifully. It might beat a little faster or push a little harder. It becomes craftier, using what it has more efficiently. Like an experienced hiker conserving energy on a steep climb, the heart learns the tricks of endurance. The valves, those clever flaps that direct blood through the chambers, also change with age. Over time, they can thicken or become stiffer, especially the aortic valve, the one that sends blood from the left ventricle into the aorta. This can lead to something called aortic stenosis, where the valve doesn't open as wide as it should, making the heart work harder to push blood through. It's a bit like trying to pump water through a garden hose with your thumb pressed over the end. More pressure is required. Calcium can deposit on the valve leaflets as we age, almost like little mineral freckles. In many people, this process is so gradual and mild that it doesn't cause any trouble, but in others, it can cause narrowing and even restrict blood flow. Fortunately, modern medicine has a whole toolbox of solutions, ranging from medications to valve replacements, that can address these issues without skipping a beat, literally. Next, there's the electrical system. As you may remember, the heartbeat is triggered by the electrical signals generated by the sinoatrial SA node and conducted through the heart in a precise sequence. With age, these signals can slow or become erratic. The SA node itself may fire less frequently, and the conduction pathways can become a bit, well, frayed. Like old wiring in a house, they might occasionally short-circuit or drop a signal. This can lead to arrhythmias or irregular heartbeats. Some, like atrial fibrillation, become more common with age. Others might cause the heart to beat more slowly than it should, a condition called bradycardia. When this happens, doctors might recommend a pacemaker, essentially a backup conductor to keep time when the natural rhythm gets a little offbeat. Blood vessels also age, and since they're tightly tied to the heart's function, changes here affect the whole system. Arteries, which carry oxygen-rich blood from the heart, tend to become less flexible with time. This stiffening, often worsened by the gradual buildup of plaque, contributes to hypertension or high blood pressure. The heart has to pump harder to move blood through these less pliable vessels, which adds to its workload. Think of it like riding a bicycle up a hill. When you're young, the hill's a gentle incline. With age and with narrowed arteries, that hill gets steeper, even if you're traveling the same route. Yet, even under pressure, the heart often holds steady. That's part of its brilliance. It's not a frail organ waiting to fail. It's a lifelong overachiever, and it benefits immensely from a healthy lifestyle, even later in life. Moderate exercise, good nutrition, adequate sleep, and stress reduction all support heart health well into old age. The myth that aging inevitably leads to heart disease is just that, a myth. It's true that the risk increases over time, but it's not destiny. Many people in their 80s, 90s, or even beyond have strong, healthy hearts. Some are still out gardening, walking their dogs, dancing in their kitchens. The heart doesn't retire, just appreciates a little extra care. And there's something lovely about that, isn't there? That with every year, your heart isn't winding down. It's collecting wisdom. It learns to work around obstacles. It builds collateral circulation, new, tiny blood vessels that help reroute blood if a path is blocked. It listens more closely to the signals from the brain, the kidneys, the lungs. It fine-tunes its rhythm like a musician adjusting to a changing tempo. Yes, things do change. The heartbeat may slow a little. The recovery after exertion might take a touch longer. You might feel your pulse flutter now and then, but these changes are part of a natural process, a postural process, not a sudden betrayal. Aging isn't a breakdown, it's a gradual adaptation. And perhaps one of the most beautiful parts of this story is how the heart carries your history. Every heartbreak, every joy, every fear and burst of laughter. It's all there. The racing pulse when you fell in love, the stillness in moments of awe, the thump in your chest before a leap into the unknown. It remembers in its own quiet way. So, if you ever find yourself worrying that age is somehow diminishing you, remember your heart. It's weathered every storm. It's adjusted to every demand, and it's still here, beating calmly beneath your chest, asking nothing more than the basics. A little oxygen, a little kindness, and the occasional deep breath. After all, it's not just your heart. It's your lifelong companion, your metronome, your partner in crime, your ever-faithful drummer. And as long as it's beating, there's still rhythm in your story. Despite its best efforts, the heart doesn't always have a perfect day. For all its loyalty and brilliance, it's still a biological machine. And like any machine, it can wear down, seize up, or start acting a little odd. Fortunately, the heart is also resilient, adaptable, and, for the most part, quite good at dropping hints when something's off. Let's gently explore some of the most common heart conditions with clarity, compassion, and absolutely no alarm clocks. Let's start with one of the better-known events. The heart attack, also called a myocardial infarction. It sounds dramatic because, well, it is, but not always in the chest-clutching movie star way. A heart attack happens when one of the coronary arteries, the vessels that supply the heart muscle with oxygen-rich blood, becomes blocked. Without oxygen, parts of the heart muscle begin to suffer and can even die if blood flow isn't restored quickly. The most common cause is a plaque rupture. Over time, fatty deposits called atherosclerotic plaques can build up in the artery walls. If one of these ruptures, a blood clot can form and completely block the flow of blood. It's a bit like a tree falling across a narrow road. Suddenly, nothing gets through. Symptoms vary. The classic sign is chest pain, usually a heavy, squeezing sensation that may radiate to the left arm, jaw, or back. But heart attacks can also come with nausea, sweating, shortness of breath, or even a quiet sense of fatigue. Some are silent, especially in older adults or people with diabetes. That's why it's good to know your own body's usual rhythms, so when something feels off, you know to speak up. Then there's heart failure, which, despite the name, doesn't mean the heart has stopped working. Rather, it means the heart isn't pumping as effectively as it should. It's like a bicycle pump with a tired spring, still working, just not quite as forcefully. There are two main types. In systolic heart failure, the heart can't contract strongly enough to push out enough blood. In diastolic heart failure, the heart can't relax properly, which makes it difficult for the chambers to fill between beats. Either way, the result is a backup of fluid in the lungs, legs, or abdomen. Common symptoms include breathlessness, especially when lying flat, fatigue, swelling in the ankles, and waking up gasping for air. It's not pleasant, but it is treatable, and many people live long, active lives with it once properly managed. Another issue some hearts face is valve disease. Remember those delicate little flaps that guide the flow of blood between chambers and out of the heart? Sometimes they don't work quite right. They might not open fully, stenosis, or they might not close tightly, regurgitation or insufficiency. Either way, the heart has to work harder to move blood efficiently. Murmurs, those whooshing sounds sometimes picked up by stethoscopes, are often the first sign of a valve issue. Many murmurs are harmless, especially in children, but others can signal a problem that needs monitoring or intervention. Over time, poorly functioning valves can lead to enlargement of the heart chambers, fatigue, and breathlessness. Now, let's revisit something we touched on earlier: arrhythmias or abnormal heart rhythms. Your heart's internal electrical system is a marvel, but occasionally, it misfires or falls out of sync. Some arrhythmias are harmless. A skipped beat here or there is nothing to lose sleep over, unless you're listening to this while trying to sleep, in which case, rest easy. But others can be more serious. Atrial fibrillation, or AFib, is a common condition where the atria beat rapidly and irregularly, making the rhythm unpredictable and inefficient. Blood may not flow properly out of the atria, which increases the risk of forming clots. That's why people with AFib often take blood thinners to reduce the risk of stroke. Other arrhythmias include ventricular tachycardia, where the ventricles beat too quickly, and ventricular fibrillation, where the rhythm becomes so chaotic that the heart stops pumping blood altogether. The latter is a medical emergency requiring immediate attention, usually with a defibrillator, those shock-delivering devices you've seen in every medical drama ever aired. Then there are congenital heart defects, structural problems that people are born with. These can range from tiny holes between chambers, like atrial septal defects or ventricular septal defects, to more complex issues involving valves, vessels, or the heart's overall shape. Thanks to advances in prenatal screening and pediatric surgery, many of these conditions are now diagnosed early and corrected successfully. A child born with a heart defect today has far more options and a far brighter prognosis than ever before. But what causes all these issues in the first place? There's no single answer. Genetics can play a role. Some heart conditions run in families. Lifestyle factors are also influential. Smoking, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, and a sedentary routine can all increase the risk of heart disease over time. But it's important to remember that these are not moral failings. They're conditions, and they can be managed, adjusted, improved, often dramatically. In fact, one of the most empowering truths about heart health is that small changes make a big difference. A daily walk, a few more vegetables, a bit less salt, managing stress, getting good sleep, checking in with your doctor. All of these build up day by day, beat by beat. And even when things do go wrong, we've come a long way in how we respond. medications, surgeries, devices. Today's treatments are sophisticated, minimally invasive, and often life-extending. Many people with heart conditions live well into their 80s and 90s with the help of modern care. So, if your heart has ever skipped a beat, metaphorically or otherwise, know this. It doesn't mean it's broken. It means it's alive, responsive, human, vulnerable, yes, but also strong in ways that numbers and scans can't always show. The heart is not a perfect machine, but then none of us are. Stumbles sometimes, wears down, calls for help, and that, in its own way, is part of its beauty because it also endures, heals, adapts, and sometimes even after everything it's been through, it still finds the strength to love, to dance, to laugh, and to keep going one gentle beat at a time. When the heart falters, we don't just cross our fingers and hope for the best. We fix it, patch it, reroute it, tune it up like a classic engine with a whole lot of miles and a whole lot more left to give. In this chapter, we'll wander through the world of modern medicine. Not the loud, dramatic version with beeping monitors and shouted orders, but the quietly remarkable tools and techniques we use every day to help hearts heal, strengthen, and carry on. Let's start with something small and mighty. The pacemaker. Despite sounding like something a track coach might carry, a pacemaker is a tiny device, often no bigger than a large coin, that sits just under the skin of the chest. It's connected to the heart with slender wires and sends tiny electrical impulses to keep the heart beating at a steady rhythm. This is especially helpful for people whose hearts are beating too slowly, bradycardia, or who experience long pauses between beats. Pacemakers are programmed to work only when needed. If your heart's doing just fine on its own, the device stays quiet. But if things slow down, the pacemaker jumps in with a quick pulse, like a helpful tap on the shoulder saying, "Time to beat again." For many people, this means more energy, better circulation, and fewer dizzy spells. And yes, you can still go through airport security just fine. Pacemakers are clever like that. Then there's the implantable cardioverter defibrillator, or ICD. This is like a pacemaker with superhero ambitions. It not only monitors your heart rhythm, but if it detects a dangerously fast or chaotic rhythm, such as ventricular fibrillation, it delivers a small shock to reset the heart's electrical system. It's a bit like rebooting a frozen computer, but with significantly higher stakes. These devices are used in people at risk of life-threatening arrhythmias, often due to a history of heart attacks or heart failure. And while the idea of getting a shock from inside your own chest might sound unnerving, most people say they rarely notice it or are simply grateful that it's there, doing its job silently. For people with blocked coronary arteries, the kind of blockage that can lead to a heart attack, we have a number of tools to restore blood flow. One of the most common is angioplasty, often paired with a stent. In this minimally invasive procedure, a thin tube called a catheter is threaded through a blood vessel, usually from the wrist or groin, up to the site of the blockage in the coronary artery. At the tip of this catheter is a tiny balloon, which is inflated to push the plaque aside and widen the artery. To help keep it open, a small mesh tube, a stent, is often left in place. It acts like scaffolding, holding the artery open and allowing blood to flow freely again. It's surprisingly elegant for something done inside a beating heart. Most people are awake during the procedure with only mild sedation. Recovery is quick, and the difference afterward, more energy, less chest pain, can be dramatic. In more complex cases or when multiple arteries are involved, doctors may recommend coronary artery bypass grafting, or CABG, pronounced cabbage. Strangely enough, this is the traditional open heart surgery you've probably heard about. Surgeons take a healthy blood vessel, often from the leg or chest, and use it to create a new route for blood to bypass the blocked artery. It's like building a detour around a traffic jam. Despite sounding intense, bypass surgery has become incredibly safe and effective, especially with advances in surgical technique and post-operative care. Many people who undergo the procedure go on to live full, active lives for decades afterward. Some even go back to playing tennis, ballroom dancing, or hiking with grandkids. But not all treatments are high-tech or surgical. Much of modern heart care is about medication and lifestyle. Gentle, steady nudges in the right direction. Statins help lower cholesterol levels, reducing the risk of new plaque forming in the arteries. Beta blockers slow the heart rate and reduce blood pressure, easing the heart's workload. ACE inhibitors help blood vessels relax, improving circulation. And blood thinners, like aspirin or newer anticoagulants, prevent dangerous clots from forming. Then there's the unsung hero of modern cardiology: cardiac rehabilitation. This is a supervised program of exercise, education, and support for people recovering from a heart event or managing chronic heart conditions. It's not just about treadmills. It's about rebuilding confidence, learning how to listen to your body, and finding a new rhythm that works for you. Patients who attend cardiac rehab often report better quality of life, fewer hospital visits, and even a brighter outlook. There's something powerful about realizing you can keep moving forward, one heartbeat at a time. And of course, the heart benefits enormously from lifestyle changes that, frankly, are good for every part of you. Regular physical activity like walking, swimming, or even gardening keeps the cardiovascular system strong. A heart-healthy diet, think more plants, less salt, healthy fats, and whole grains, can lower blood pressure and cholesterol. Quitting smoking is perhaps the single best gift you can give your heart. Managing stress through meditation, breathing exercises, or even just a good night's sleep also makes a difference. None of this is revolutionary, but it is reliable, and the effects compound over time. What's remarkable about the modern era is that we're no longer at the mercy of the heart. We understand it. We can track its rhythms, image its chambers, listen to its murmurs, and intervene with tools that would have been unthinkable a century ago. Even serious conditions can often be managed with a mix of care, technology, and a bit of patience. The heart, after all, is not fragile. It's adaptable. And when it struggles, we don't abandon it. We lend it a hand, or a stent, or a steady beat delivered through a little titanium box tucked quietly under the skin. So, if your heart has ever needed help or might someday, take comfort in knowing we're good at helping. We're good at listening. And the heart, for all its complexity, tends to respond very well to kindness, care, and a little encouragement. It doesn't ask for much, just the tools to do its job and the chance to keep going. And that, more often than not, is exactly what it does. Long before humans knew what a heart was, before the first stethoscope, the first surgery, the first love poem written with that iconic red symbol, hearts were beating in the bodies of creatures crawling through mud, swimming through oceans, and flapping through the skies. Our hearts, for all their elegance and engineering, are not brand new inventions. They are the result of a long, winding story, a biological evolution shaped by pressure, need, and the ceaseless whisper of natural selection. Let's take a deep breath and travel back, way back, before mammals, before reptiles, before fish, to when the first tiny creatures began circulating fluids through their bodies, not with a heart exactly, but with simple muscular contractions that moved nutrients around. These were the earliest hints of circulation, a primitive plumbing system to keep their tiny systems running. Eventually, nature got bolder. Invertebrates like insects and mollusks developed open circulatory systems, where blood, or more accurately, hemolymph, sloshes freely around their organs. It's not as precise as a closed system, but for creatures that don't need high-speed delivery, it works just fine. Grasshoppers, for instance, have a long, tubular heart that pulses hemolymph from the rear of the body toward the head. No arteries or veins, just fluid movement through cavities. Crude but functional. But as life became more complex and mobile, the demand for efficient, high-pressure circulation increased. That's when we begin to see the emergence of closed circulatory systems, where blood is confined to vessels and pumped by a central organ. Enter the early fish. Fish are the first creatures to show a true heart, a simple two-chambered organ with one atrium and one ventricle. Blood flows from the heart to the gills, where it picks up oxygen, and then on to the rest of the body. There's just one loop. Heart to gills to body, then back to heart. It's not the most powerful system, but in water, with a body designed for streamlined movement and oxygen-rich gills, it's quite efficient. But the evolutionary tree kept branching. As some creatures began crawling onto land and developing lungs, circulation had to adapt again. Amphibians, like frogs, added a second atrium to their hearts, creating a three-chambered heart with two atria and one ventricle. Now blood could return from the lungs and from the body separately, each entering its own atrium, but still mixed together in a shared ventricle. It was an improvement, but not perfect. Mixing oxygenated and deoxygenated blood isn't ideal if you're trying to deliver fresh oxygen to muscles for jumping, climbing, or evading predators. So, evolution refined the system further in reptiles, who developed a more complex version of the three-chambered heart, one with a partial septum in the ventricle, which helped separate the two bloodstreams. Still not a full split, but closer. Then came the champions of circulatory efficiency, birds and mammals, both of which independently evolved the four-chambered heart. This is the version you and I are equipped with. Two atria, two ventricles, and a complete wall, the septum dividing the left and right sides. This design creates two separate circuits, one for the lungs and one for the rest of the body. No mixing, clean, high-pressure delivery of oxygen-rich blood exactly where it's needed. Perfect for warm-blooded creatures that burn energy rapidly and need a constant supply of oxygen to keep everything humming. Birds, by the way, have some of the most efficient hearts in the animal kingdom. Their heart rate can skyrocket during flight. Tiny hummingbirds can hit over 1,200 beats per minute. That's faster than most human hearts could ever dream of beating. And yet, for a hummingbird, it's just another Tuesday. Their metabolic demands are so intense that without this blazing fast rhythm, they'd run out of energy midair. On the other end of the scale, consider the blue whale, the largest heart in the animal kingdom. It can weigh over 400 pounds, roughly the size of a golf cart. At rest, a blue whale's heart may beat as slowly as 2 beats per minute. Just imagine the power required for each of those beats to send blood through a body that can grow up to 100 feet long. It's not speed that matters here. It's strength and volume. And then there are animals with heart designs that defy our norms. Octopuses, for instance, have 3 hearts. 2 pump blood to the gills, and 1 pumps it to the rest of the body. When they swim, the systemic heart actually stops beating, which is one reason they prefer to crawl rather than expend energy jetting around. Their blood is also blue, thanks to a copper-based molecule called hemocyanin rather than our iron-based red hemoglobin. Giraffes have another fascinating case study. Their hearts need to pump blood up a long neck, sometimes over 6 feet, to reach the brain. To accomplish this, they have incredibly high blood pressure and thick, muscular left ventricles. But when they bend down to drink water, that same pressure could cause damage. So, they have special valves and tight skin around their legs to prevent too much blood from pooling. It's a whole architectural blueprint just to keep blood moving safely. So what does this all mean for us? It reminds us that the human heart, elegant, 4-chambered, rhythmic, isn't a standalone masterpiece. It's the product of millions of years of tiny adjustments, branching paths, and borrowed tricks from distant cousins in the evolutionary family tree. Our heart works because it was shaped by necessity, by adaptation, by trial and error over time. And though we might marvel at the precision of our own circulatory system, It's humbling to know that other creatures have found entirely different ways to solve the same problem. Some with 3 hearts, some with 2 chambers, some with none at all. Evolution doesn't aim for perfection. It aims for good enough to keep going. And yet, here you are lying quietly, feeling your 4-chambered heart keeping its calm, persistent rhythm. A marvel of biology, yes, but also a survivor, an heirloom, a living fossil from a time when life was simpler, but the beat was already beginning. The heartbeat isn't just a measure of your moment. It's a whisper from your ancestors, from fish and frogs, from birds and beasts. It's a rhythm passed down through time, shaped by oceans, gravity, and air. And tonight it's yours. Still beating, still evolving, still telling the story of life. Your heart may be a muscle, but it's no brute. It's more than a pump and far more than plumbing. It listens, it responds, feels in its own way. For all its physical precision, the heart is also deeply entwined with your emotions. It doesn't just react to stress and joy. It dances with them, quietly echoing every flutter of fear, every sigh of relief, every unexpected burst of laughter. This final chapter belongs to that hidden partnership between heart and mind, biology and emotion, a conversation that never quite stops. Let's begin with a curious truth. Your heart has its own nervous system. About 40,000 neurons are woven throughout it, forming what some researchers call the heart brain. These cells can sense, feel, learn, and even remember to some extent. That may sound poetic, and it is, but it's also grounded in hard science. This system doesn't make decisions the way your brain does, but it communicates constantly with it, sharing status updates via the vagus nerve and other neural highways. The vagus nerve is a key player here. It runs from your brainstem down through your chest and into your abdomen, connecting to the heart, lungs, and digestive organs. When you're calm, this nerve helps slow your heart rate, reduce blood pressure, and keep your system in rest and repair mode. When you're stressed, the vagus steps back, and your sympathetic nervous system takes over. That's the fight or flight branch, the one that prepares your body to run from tigers or public speaking engagements. In that state, your heart races, your breathing quickens, blood is diverted from your gut to your muscles. You're not in danger, but your body acts like you are. And the heart is right there in the center of it, pounding away like a war drum. This is why emotional stress can feel so physical. Anxiety tightens your chest. Grief weighs heavy over your heart. Love makes it flutter. A surprise can make it leap. The metaphors we use, heartache, heartfelt, broken-hearted, light-hearted, aren't just figures of speech. They're rooted in what we physically feel. You may have even heard of broken heart syndrome, a real condition formerly known as stress cardiomyopathy or Takotsubo syndrome, named after a Japanese octopus trap with a round bottom and narrow neck, because that's what the heart looks like during an episode. This condition can be triggered by sudden emotional stress, like the loss of a loved one. The symptoms mimic a heart attack: chest pain, shortness of breath, changes on an ECG. But it's not caused by blocked arteries. It's caused by a flood of stress hormones temporarily stunning the heart. Most people recover fully, but it's a powerful reminder that what we feel emotionally can echo loudly in our physical body. On the flip side, positive emotions also shape your heartbeat. When you're relaxed, grateful, or content, your heart rate slows, and your heart rate variability, the gentle variation in time between beats, tends to increase. And this heart rate variability, HRV, is a fascinating metric. Higher HRV is generally a sign of resilience, good emotional regulation, and overall health. It means your heart can adjust moment by moment, like a skilled driver easing through curves instead of speeding over bumps. Mindfulness practices like meditation, slow breathing, and even focused gratitude have been shown to improve HRV. They calm the sympathetic nervous system, engage the vagus nerve, and bring the body back into a state of balance. The breath, in particular, is a powerful bridge between the conscious and unconscious systems. You can't will your heart to slow down with pure thought, but you can breathe slowly, and your heart will often follow. This is why practices like box breathing, inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4, exhaling for 4, and holding again can be so soothing. It's not just relaxing your mind, it's rebalancing your nervous system beat by beat. And yet, the heart's connection to emotion goes beyond physiology. There's a deeply human layer to all of this. We place our hands over our hearts in moments of sincerity. We feel a rush to the chest when we're overwhelmed. We talk about feeling something in our hearts when we can't explain it any other way. In many cultures, the heart is seen as the seat of the soul. Not the brain, not the lungs, the heart. The thing that beats when we're born and stops when we die. The thing that surges when we see someone we love, that stutters when we're scared, that aches when we've lost something we can't get back. Of course, science might say this is projection, that the brain is responsible for emotion and the heart is simply responding. But maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is that it feels true, that the heart is always involved in our deepest experiences, whether we're laughing until we cry or sitting in silence with someone who understands us. The heart is there, not just pumping blood, but reflecting the moment. And perhaps that's why we care so much about its rhythm, why a steady heartbeat is such a symbol of calm, of life, of hope. Because we don't just want to exist. We want to feel alive. And that feeling, more often than not, is accompanied by a little thump in the chest. So, here you are, breathing gently, maybe lying down, maybe your eyelids are getting heavy. And within you, your heart continues to beat. Not just because of cells and signals, ions and valves, but because it always has. 'Cause it knows how. 'Cause it's yours. It responds to your breath. It listens to your thoughts. It quietly records the rhythm of your life. And tonight as you rest, maybe it's beating just a little slower, a little softer, a little steadier, as if to say, everything's all right. I've got you. Beat by beat, moment by moment, always. And so, here we are at the end of our quiet journey through the heart. We've wandered through chambers and valves, followed the blood from lung to toe and back again, listened in on the electrical whispers that keep the rhythm going, and peeked into the deep, quiet ways emotion and biology blend into a single steady pulse. Your heart is quite literally the soundtrack of your life. It began before you ever knew the world, and it will carry on, faithful, steady, responsive, until your very last breath. It's both an engine and an echo, a marvel of evolution and a keeper of your most intimate moments. It's easy to forget it's even there, tucked beneath ribs, behind breath and thought, yet it never forgets you. Beat after beat, it's always trying to keep you balanced, fueled, and alive. And tonight, as you lie here, calm, safe, and perhaps just a little sleepier than when we began, your heart is still working quietly in the background. There's no fanfare, no applause, just gentle, beautiful persistence. If you've enjoyed this time together, I'd be truly grateful if you gave this video a like and subscribe to Starlit Science Stories. It helps this little corner of the internet grow and lets more curious minds find their way here. And before you drift off completely, I'd love to know, where are you listening from, and what time is it for you right now? Let me know in the comments. I always find it comforting to imagine this quiet thread of hearts and ears stretching across time zones, from midnight in the mountains to soft sunsets by the sea. But for now, close your eyes, take one more deep breath in and out, and let your heart do what it's always done. Good night.